Former homeless people of Reddit. What unwritten rules codes are there, if any, towards other homeless people that most people may not know about? Serious. When dumpster diving, if you find a pair of shoes and they are not your size or clothes, then leave them neatly by the side of the dumpster for the next diver. Look out for each other and be good to each other. We're all struggling, so let's make it as good as we can for each other. When I was homeless, we paid for each other's food, clothes, and any other essentials if one was truly in need. My dad told me about the time he had to live homeless for a week for a class. He was working toward being a Catholic deacon. He has lots of stories from it, but the one that stuck with me was his first night of being homeless. He woke up covered in layers cardboard, with a rock on top to hold it in place. The other homeless took care of him his first night on the streets. When I was in college, my sociology professor gave us the option of being homeless in a big city for a weekend for extra credit. I wonder if anyone ever took that particular assignment. Be wary of items given to you by other people. My cousin counseled homeless youth for a few years, and one of his favorites got sent to jail for accepting a gift of a cell phone. The phone ended up being stolen out of the owner's car and had GPS attached to it. The police found him with the phone and arrested him on the spot. My cousin was called in as a character witness to testify on his behalf. Not sure what happened after that though. I wonder if the thief saw himself as a Robin Hood type and didn't think it through, or if he was really just such a base butthole that he wanted to get a homeless person in trouble. Share what you have with your group. What goes around comes around. If there are a group of you, each person can stand on a different corner to beg and make far more than you would by yourself. I lived on the streets in Seattle in 2000. And lived in shelters and transitional houses for many years after that. I was 15 at the time, and there is a pretty big homeless population here. We had some weird rules. I mostly lived on Broadway, and each homeless group really had their own rules. There were also the AV-rats, who lived up by the university. They had a whole political system. People were at the top, and people were at the bottom. You could also get kicked off the AV. And most of those kids would end up on Broadway. Almost everyone on Broadway was a junkie, or gay, and there were the downtown kids, mostly young foster runaways or kids with mental issues. Lots of jugglers down there. So, I guess we were sort of the crazy group. The big one I remember is that you always take off your shoes when you sleep, and if you sleep outside, sleep on top of your bag and tuck your shoes under it. Sometimes my bag was way too packed to pull that off comfortably, but people would take your shoes just to frick with you. They would call the annoying or new kids oogles, but they wouldn't ever kick someone out of the neighborhood like AV-rats. Just too much H going around really to have that type of control. Probably the most offensive thing you can do is finding out where someone who's homeless lives. If you follow them, they will stop and talk to you, and if you just enter a squat uninvited, well, it's really dangerous. It was respectful to pretend like you didn't care where your friends went at night. At any point you can get uninvited too, and you'll just be locked out that night. They do not give a crap about where you are staying. This isn't a pity party. Broadway is pretty small too, just about 7 blocks long. So people would panhandle right next to you all the time. If they weren't at least 2 shops away, they were probably doing it to pee you off, or it's just their normal spot. Like I always camped out in front of this Mexican place because they had awesome leftovers. But it was absolutely uncool to sit or lie down around other homeless kids, or stand on the side of the sidewalk that the stores are on. It's illegal on Broadway, and doing that just attracts the cops. I remember asking other homeless kids to stand all the time, just because I was sick of getting picked up by the cops. Lots of theft too. No real idea of a moral code at all there, although people would share their drugs with you all the time. That way they had someone to bug about sharing back when they didn't have any cash. Later on I lived at Tent City and still got stuff stolen from me quite often, even though they have a decent community too. Hey, I think that's about all that I can think of right now. I hope you are doing better these days. Thanks for sharing. If you're trying to run away from good parents and are underage, we will make sure the police find you. Kid was 15, and after talking with his friends, we heard no reason for him to be running away. A teenage angst made sure the police took him home and left my cell phone number in case he ran away again. Just because I was homeless, that didn't mean I didn't work 2 jobs. Would work about 56 hours a week at a gas station between 2 stores, and then did the usual selling papers on the streets in the morning. Backstory time. I had moved down to Florida with a friend almost on a whim, had about $1,000 saved up at the time. He was going down to get out of the state and meet up with a girl, who he later caught cheating on him, and I had just recently broken up and wanted a good escape from Minnesota. After 2 months, we were no longer welcomed at our arranged place to stay, and I hadn't yet landed a job. We had an apartment lined up, but at this time I was a few hundred short of the deposit check, which had been written to secure an apartment already. I had already met a few people my age who were homeless, and knew of an abandoned apartment complex, with screened-in porches. I had paid my phone bill 3 months in advance, and had something around $120 of credit on the bill. Old Candiba phone, minimal texting and a low minutes plan, but unlimited on nights and weekends. That made it pretty easy to stay in contact with people, and very essential for getting a job. Come to find out later, my friend never replaced the rent check, which means I should have just stayed with him. But I only found that out after one of my former roommates up here had convinced me I needed to come back and whip the boys in the apartment into shape. I had paid her a full month's rent before moving out, just so she would have some backup in case her boyfriend and the other roommate had issues. Still on the lease, and Hurricane Katrina was coming. Those 90-degree palm trees. I shipped what I couldn't carry on the bus back to my place and hopped on a Greyhound. My brother, who is mentally ill, was homeless on the streets of DC. He says the other homeless people got him food and forced him to eat it when he looked like he would starve because the voices in his head were telling him to avoid all food. They also made sure he had shelter and generally kept his completely helpless butt alive for almost a year. God bless you, your brother, and all these people who helped him. I never had a problem with food like someone else said. Anyways, 1. Find a group of people you can trust, not easy to do, and stick with them. 2. Don't be the guy with the sign asking for money, ever. If you must ask for money, state the reason why, and if someone says instead of giving you the money I'll just pay for it myself and give it to you, don't turn that down freaking ever. 3. People think all homeless people are on drugs because that's the stereotype they are presented with. Do your best to not blend in with those people. You will be amazed at what people are willing to do if you're making an honest attempt at getting on your feet and you do your best to present yourself that way. 4. Don't do anything stupid to get money. Frick. Crime. You will regret it. 4.1. Also, don't be a freaking rat, that crap will get you killed. Remember, a lot of the people in your world are off the grid. 5. If you are getting nowhere in the city you are in, get out of there. There is always someone headed your way. 6. Never ever turn down a chance to do some work. Never. That may be an opportunity to get you started again. 7. Even if you're not religious, if a religious family offered you a place to stay, sometimes if you go to church with us but not always, don't turn it down. 7.1. Don't do anything to them such as steal or rob them. That's how reputation gets started. 8. You never too good for anything. If you think you are, that may be why you're out there to begins with. 9. Yay. Those cloths may stink but at least you have some. 10. Americans. If you're young enough, the military may be your best option. Money, food, bed and job, and all you have to do is show up. 11. Stay off drugs. That again may be why you're there and could very well cost you a chance to get off the streets. I'm sure that's not what you were asking, but it's been over 20 years since I got back on my feet, and those are the things that have stuck with me. Source: homeless for 2 years. I would like to help someone in Chicago. If you are in Chicago and need help, and for whatever goddamn reason are on a computer to see this, PM me and I will do whatever I can. Homeless for 5 years here, since I was 18. Here's a few I noticed. Prison and jail culture bleeds into the homeless community. Watch your words. Words normal people get to say can have serious meanings on the streets. One example: saying B to someone might get you assaulted. Watch your mouth, or you won't last long. No one's pressing charges or calling the cops. If you get into a fight with someone, it's all he said she said balls. Everyone takes it and conflicts resolve themselves. Everyone you're around is homeless. You gotta stay in that shelter with them every night. You'll share the same public spaces that everyone who's homeless has too. You don't have a choice. Keep to yourself. Don't mouth off. Don't frick with anyone else, or you'll get fricked with. You cigs are everyone else's cigs. Everyone on the street smokes. If you got M, you're probably going to end up sharing them. I've been technically homeless about 3 times before the age of 15. But you would not be able to tell just by looking at me or conversing briefly. Average looking white, 20 years male college student. Without explaining a ton of other stuff and including many sad stories, I'll get to the meat of the question. For my family, I remembered that we would go to the library every day for several hours at a time. It's a place where extended stays aren't particularly unusual. Additionally, you have AC heat, internet computer access, water fountains, bathrooms, lounge chairs, and nearly endless educating vessels surrounding you in the form of books. TLDR. If you're ever homeless, go to the library. If you're homeless, previously homeless, volunteer with the homeless, or in danger of being homeless, please join us over at Our Homeless. I was homeless at age 17, but lived in a shelter and not on the street. My experiences may vary from yours. Don't freaking trust anyone. The women in my shelter would befriend you and backstab you just to laugh at you when you get kicked out. Is there general prostitution in the area? Chances are some of the women in the shelter are a part of that problem. Mental illness. Mental illness everywhere. Doesn't have to be severe, but there are a lot of messed up people. Be careful who you confront, especially if you're unsure of their mental capacity. Do you own things of any value? Well, better keep them to yourself, because some butthole will try to steal them and resell them. Do not frick with people's children. Seriously, you don't know who is friends with who, and might frick your crap up. Also, don't make comments about their baby daddies if it's very obvious they have several. Touchy subject usually. Don't steal each other's food. If you do, they will hunt you down and find you. I once saw a woman have drugs planted on her so that she'd get kicked out once they found out she was stealing food. I used to do food not bombs in DC. We served meals every Sunday for several years and I got to know a lot of the homeless people in the city. I saw quite a bit of mental illness afflicting some seriously brilliant people. One guy would pull out photocopies of the Shroud of Turin, trying to convince us that Jesus had no genitals, and go on a rant from there. Another homeless guy once cut him off by saying, "He's trying to lobotomize Jesus between the legs." The latter guy ruled. He'd quote Thomas Aquinas and lived for a pat, a little hug. My experience taught me 2 things. The first is that the group we dealt with were often super grateful for the food we brought because it tasted good. It's sort of how I learned to cook. Had lots of vegetables, and we didn't preach to them about religion. I remember one of the guys saying, "I don't need you to try and save me," before giving me a stale bologna sandwich. The other thing is that the people we served almost never begged for money. They would quietly try to make things work. It tended to be the addicts who would beg. That said, there was this one dude who would ask for money whenever I saw him around the city and I'd offer to buy him food. He jumped at the offer twice and went nuts at a 7-Eleven and a breakfast place respectively. He was hungry. There are some butthole homeless people, but there are some butthole people with homes. That's the long and short of it. I have a bunch of stories, but I'd say that if you have the time to stop and talk with the person for a minute you can learn a lot and measure whether it's worth helping them out. Many of the people we helped would avoid shelters because of the fighting, stealing, and chance of catching TB. Something to consider when you tell yourself that there are options for the homeless. It's complicated. Save every penny. Buy a tent. Put your tent next to a river. Go to the library every single day. Spend as much time as you can applying for jobs. Take the first job you can get. Keep bathing in the river and working until winter. Do not spend a dime on booze. Once winter comes, get an apartment and keep working. Apply to your local technical college and get a job in IT. Stop being homeless. Worked for me. I was kicked out of the house at summer after my first year of college. I was a frick up. I had gotten a .68 GPA, and I was just a drunk. So my folks said, "No partying while you are staying here." I happily complied, but when my dad found my bong, which I wasn't using, but had buried deep in storage, he kicked me out. In his defense, I have 2 younger brothers who are 7 and 8 years younger than me, and he had them to think about too, so he gave me the boot. I shuffled through a couple buddies' places until my dad convinced their parents to kick me out for my own good. All I had was a car. I did some odd jobs and made a couple bucks to get a tent. I grew up in Wisconsin on the Mississippi, so I was lucky enough to be by a massive river and plenty of other fresh water sources. Also, I am not alcohol dependent. I just am from Wisconsin. We drink more than any other state besides Alaska. It is just part of the culture. So I would clean and groom by the river. I still used my parents' place as a mailbox, knowing they haven't locked their doors in 30 years, and I could easily grab my mail while they were at work. I got a job at a call center and saved some money. I got an apartment with the guys whose parents also kicked me out. I partied my butt off after I signed the lease. I enrolled in tech school, worked my butt off. 4.0. Enrolled in real school, worked 30 hours a week with 18 credits, and graduated with a 3.5. I had an easy homeless stint. I was not addicted to anything. I do not suffer from any mental health issues. I have an IQ of 136. I had a healthy, strong farm boy body. I knew how to fish, build fires, and cook on those fires. I am not your typical homeless man. I am not saying it is this easy for everyone. Most folks will find it much harder. I am just saying, if you are a smart, healthy person, and you find yourself without a home, don't sweat it. You will be fine. I work at pizza place in downtown Houston. I've been homeless a few times, so I have convinced my shift leaders managers to let me distribute the pizzas that we don't give to the homeless. I've been doing this for about a year. Everyone is so appreciative. It's a very rewarding act. You get what you give. If you act like an butthole to the people around you, they'll treat you like one, especially when you're in tent city. Just because a crew is homeless doesn't mean they don't have a community. You can either be part of it or not, but if you treat people harshly, expect it back at you. Don't frick with street families, street kids. Most people don't want to acknowledge you exist. I'd say don't get frustrated with that, but it gets old really fast. Just find a way to make your day a little brighter. And be careful with what people give you. There's a lot of buttholes out there, regardless of what the police say. No, you're not going to get your things back. Oh, and don't argue with them. They'll beat the crap out of you for no reason in a lot of cases because you don't have anybody standing up for you politically. So expect to be woken up really early, randomly, and be searched and then told to move. Unless you have a crew watching your stuff, don't leave it out in the open. Someone else will take it. Some of them are people who need it just as bad as you do. Others are just jerks. Little Caesar's Pizza throws away good crap. Hit them goddamn dumpsters. Their crust is so spongy that it never deteriorates. Is it offensive to give homeless people my leftover food? I know there has been a time or two I walked out of the mall with leftover Jamba Juice and Panda Express and gave it to a homeless guy sitting outside. He seemed really thankful and didn't mind that they were leftovers. Is it just being polite? I was homeless not in Vegas but close. I had a gold gym membership. It was open 24 hours so I could shower every day and had a place to hang out away from the heat. I tried to spread myself thin so I wouldn't attract attention. I'm a middle-aged woman with 2 college degrees. Pretty sad what happened to me and I didn't look the part. People could sense my being distraught at night and that was dangerous. I spent my days at the depth of labor applying for job after job. At the university or library or computer lab in the evening and at the gym or in the casino at night. I wanted to kill myself. I was so appalled and upset but I got through it. I ended up on disability. I had a nervous breakdown. I am one step away from winding up homeless any day but I guess I can survive it just like before. I hope this info helps someone in a freaking panic and scared like I was. Y'all are in my prayers, all of you. Homeless pro tips. Make friends. It's not like you have anything better to do, and ultimately this is what will get you off the streets. Don't look like a hobo. Go to Goodwill and get some nice looking clothes. A button-up shirt and some slacks makes a huge difference, even if they're a little dirty. Cops are not your friends. The closest thing there is to a hobo code is that you do not cooperate with pigs. Sometimes a dog is a good idea. Make sure it's a cute one and keep it well trained. Road dogs are actually treated much better than most house dogs and are far better behaved. Never frick with a man's dog is one of the other hobo rules. Kick someone's dog and you can bet you'll be in a ditch by morning. Get some good gear. Military gear is best because it's cheap, durable, and camouflaged well enough that you can camp near cities. A good USG sleep system will keep you warm down to -40, collapses down to a cubic foot, and costs about $80 100. No tent required, comes with a camo bivy sack that you could use to camp unnoticed on the side of the road. A comparable system would cost you upwards of $600 at REI, and it would be flimsy and colored neon orange. Be friendly with other hobos but don't turn your back on them. Many of them are awesome people. Many more are addicts or criminally insane. Watch your pack. It is valuable, and if someone steals it you're fricked. And at least once in your life, drink a hobo slam. I was a traveler kid around the Pacific Northwest for a while, many years ago. The culture I was a part of is hard to describe to people that have never been involved in it, but I'll try to list a few things. There are different cultures of homeless people, and they don't all overlap. I was a traveling punk. A kind of derogatory term is crusty punk, and we tended to keep to groups, crash at punk houses or in parks, hitchhike, hop trains, and have a radical political bent. Anarchism mainly. We made fun of oogles, who were more like Gigallo types. We called older travelers hobos and city homeless homebums, and we respected them but didn't really hang out with them. We had quite a few rules of conduct. Stealing from stores was expected, but stealing from friends other homeless was not okay. If you're crashing at somebody's house, do some dishes or dumpster dive some food for them to pay them back for their hospitality. Share your booze. Keep the dumpster areas you take food from as clean or cleaner than you found them. Don't ever hop a train alone. If you are hopping trains, look out for the number of engines on the train. A train with 4 engines is usually going a long way. Trains with 2 engines are usually local. Don't just look for boxcars, grainers, grain transport cars. Have a porch on either end and cubby holes that you can hide in to not be seen by the bulls. Train cops. There was a photocopied homemade magazine, zine, called The Crew Change Guide that you wanted to snag a copy of that would give you directions to train yards all over the country and tell you where the freight trains were going. When someone gave me one for the first time, I felt like I had been given the keys to every city in the whole world. That's all I can think of for now, but there's plenty more. To any road folk in Tennessee, make your way to Hippie Hill in Christiana. It is near Manchester. They will feed you and set you up with a tent or trailer to stay until you get back on your feet. All they ask is for a little bit of help around the land. Ask for hippie or mama. Not so much code between homeless. Here are some rules in the homeless community that most don't know about. Spanking. Flying a sign asking for change. Maintain a distance between other people. Spanking. Don't encroach on others' territory, and it's a first come basis. Also, if you're spanking in a good spot that is frequented by spangers, don't camp out all day. Tobacco, booze, drugs. If offered some, don't take a lot. Take a swig or split joint. If they have more they will offer. Sharing is big thing and it gets you places. Never ask for someone's last swig or cigarette. If someone asks you for a smoke and it's your last one, give them shorts. Also, if you don't want to share, don't advertise it. Nothing sucks more than not having and opened watching someone shoot up without sharing. Trading. Trading is huge. Don't be a dong when it comes to trading. Squats. A squat is an abandoned property that has been broken into and is semi-livable. If you have one, and it's bad weather, invite someone for the night. If you're spending the night, be respectful, quiet. Treat it as if it was actually their house. You don't want to ruin it for them. Being homeless sucks, but generally you use a golden rule. Don't let people walk all over you though. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.